over the past year or so, we've seen this kind of insane drive to preserve our lives, whether that be personal protective equipment, whether that be taking vitamins, going pretty hard with hygiene, buying guns and ammunition until the stores were literally out of them, whether that be creating a vaccine in record time and then the mad rush to get your hands on that vaccine. There's so many different ways we've witnessed in the past year or so this insane drive to preserve our lives, and how much that taps into man's desire for immortality. It's Christ who extends to us that offer of immortality, but it only comes through a real death. Only through real death does the resurrection take place, and how the resurrection is not a resuscitation of what we've had in the life as we've known it. It's not a mere continuation of life without dying. It's a resurrection, a whole new life that Jesus offers to us. And it's because of Christ's resurrection that there's a positivity that's affirmed in reality. That reality is positive by nature because of Christ's resurrection. And without Christ's resurrection, we're left with one thing: nothingness. It's this nihilism we would be reduced to if Christ has not risen from the dead. If Christ has not risen from the dead, we need not bother keep listening to this reflection. We need not have our priests and bishops, lay people, church workers, anybody. If Christ has not risen from the dead, just go out and have as much fun as you can this side of eternity while you still have time, as everything's fleeting and passing. And if there is no meaning to life, there's no positivity to reality, then there's really no point. Then we can do what we want. Indeed, we can really just make up our own reality. And we're seeing this played out in so many ways in the world today. People creating their own reality, people creating their own sort of fantasy land to live in, to kind of deny reality and to make up their own one. We think about all of these things that we've witnessed and the positivity of Christ's resurrection, that Christ's resurrection affirms reality in a positive way. This fact is what changed the apostles, these ragtag group of guys who had nothing in common with each other except for this obscure man from Nazareth calling them. And these men who, all but John, who abandoned Christ when he's arrested, when he goes to the cross. These men who tried to preserve their lives by running from danger, by running from the authorities, that fear that drove them, thinking that they would be next. To preserve their lives, they ran away. They abandoned their master. They rejected him. And yet these men, these same guys, were the ones who went out to all corners of the world, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, crucified and risen. They went so far as to go to the farthest corners of the world, to change their whole lives, to lay down their whole lives, even to the point of shedding their blood. These men were martyred. These men died for this. St. Bartholomew himself tradition holds that he was skinned to death. St. Peter crucified. St. James the Greater, tradition holds he was beheaded. These men died for witnessing to this fact that changed them. And Christians have been going to that same empty tomb that Mary Magdalene and the apostles themselves witnessed and saw empty. No other tomb in history is popular or famous for being empty. And Christians have been going to this tomb for 2,000 years to pray there, to experience this relic of this fact of Christ's resurrection, that he's still not there. The one place where we won't find God is in that tomb, is in sin and death, because with Christ, death no longer has power over him. Christians have been going there for 2,000 years, and even in the 2nd century, around the year 135 AD, the Emperor Hadrian himself, this Roman emperor, after he puts down this Jewish rebellion in Jerusalem, he squashes it. He sees this group of people, this cult, these folks known as Christians, who are going to this empty tomb, and they're going to where Christ himself was crucified on Calvary, really like a stone's throw away from each other. And Hadrian sees this, and he knows that people are going there. they're witnessing to this, and to try to deny reality, he goes and he fills them up, he fills them over, he covers them up, and he puts on top of both Calvary and the empty tomb, these pagan Roman statues to try to just discourage anybody from going there. But yet it's precisely through Hadrian that these sites were preserved, even to our own day and age. And then Constantine in the 4th century, he builds the first church of the Holy Sepulchre, and then how that church is kind of remodeled, if you will, throughout the centuries up into our own age. And you can go there today. I was there myself, and you could place your hand on the little marble slab that's right over the rock where Christ's body was laid. And he's still not there. This fact is what makes reality positive, that makes life worth living, that gives life meaning, that Christ is not in the tomb, that Christ is indeed risen. And because of this, we as Christians have the confidence and the strength and the grace to die every day to ourselves. We've seen a lot of heroic dying to self so that new life can come about through that. I think about my nurse friends who in the past year have dealt with so much heartache and heartbreak, how through the worst of circumstances and feeling alienated from their loved ones who couldn't relate to them through this terrible experience, through dealing with family members who couldn't be there with their loved ones towards the end, who've had to work through these ridiculous circumstances, and then even experience how much the healthcare business could even just be that, just a business and not about caring for people, and how they went above and beyond to care for people, to show them love, to show them charity. That's the kind of confidence and charity that Christ's resurrection makes possible, that a new life comes into being through a dying, through a real death, a death to self. This is possible, and this happens. We see this with mothers and fathers over the past year who've dealt with crazy and strange circumstances, and especially those with little children, who've died to self and flipped their whole lives upside down. But they did it out of charity. They did it out of this awareness that new life comes into being through death, death to self, a death for Christ. We see this with, those good priests and bishops out there who've, dealt with the craziest, weirdest set of circumstances and did their best given the crazy circumstances to be with their people. And so many other folks out there in their own unique ways, in their own states of life. This new life that Christ comes and offers to us, this immortality that man has always sought for, that Christ makes readily available. He extends the offer to us, but it comes with a real death. Because encountering this fact of the resurrection, this reality, life cannot just go on as it was. A whole new dimension of life opens up and is made possible and indeed necessary. Christ's resurrection affirms the positivity of reality. Without that, we're left with only one thing: nothingness. As the world continues to become more unhinged, as people themselves fall deeper into the abyss of nothingness, we move forward, not just one day of the year celebrating Easter, but living indeed as Easter people, living as people of the resurrection, those who've encountered this fact that Christ is risen, that because of this, the positivity of reality is affirmed. Because of this, we cannot deny reality. Because of this, we cannot make up our own reality. Because of this, we can't run away from reality. Because of Christ's resurrection, we embrace reality, the reality that God works through. Because of this, we have the confidence to die to self and for this new life to come into being through us.